Welcome all to our obviously scintillating part 2 of Lent, a season of mortality. But first, a welcome back to our Condega folks. Ginger sent me a few pictures on Friday. They are back in the States. I expect we'll see 2, 3, or maybe all 4 of them later this morning in the flesh, and a report will be forthcoming. I've asked Rick, and he's agreed, and Ginger's got pictures, so they'll do a forum sometime in April. We haven't scheduled it as yet, but sometime in April we'll let them come and do a show and tell and update us on how everything went. But there they were. This is Ash Wednesday soup. I don't know what Ash Wednesday soup is, but that was what Ginger said as she sent that picture to me. That's the former mayor, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
That's Kathy Ekman.
Kathy Ekman, who is part of the deputation, though not, of course, part of the official Trinity aspect of it all. But, so there they were. Again, Ash Wednesday, and I don't know when the other picture was taken. This is a special needs boy, I think, is how Ginger described him, offering some prayers. And then our teacher with some of the folks at the school. A tobacco plantation, which I have to say made me feel just a little bit funny. But obviously tobacco is a source of some of their, part of their economy there. So
Crop that will grow.
And then it wasn't all seriousness. There were fun and games. I think John looks just a little anxious about the boat. I don't know why. But he doesn't look comfortable to me in that picture there. This is Ometepe. By a coincidence, I have a nephew who at least was, at the time that they were there, also in Ometepe. I don't know where he is exactly right now. He's my hippie nephew, and he's just living the life. And so he was down with a lot of others. I mentioned to Ginger that he was among the hippies down there, and she says, "Oh, there are a few of them." So, and some petroglyphs, which I hope Ginger has some other pictures of, and she can decipher them for us. That would be awesome. Anyhow, so when you see them later today, welcome back our folks who went to Condega. And an update on Lent Madness as of Friday, the end of voting. We did not vote Saturday this year. This is how far we are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's all next week. We'll still be in the first round, and we'll move into the second round sometime.
We have a plethora of women.
Yeah, we do.
We do, and the women are doing quite well.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that plays out. I mean, we got some big battles. I don't know, Margaret of Scotland versus Richard of Hooker looking ahead. I don't know how that's going to go. We'll revisit this next week. So that's Lent Madness. And I remind you of other things going on as well. ERD, the boxes, we have lots of hope chests now. We didn't have enough. And ERD didn't send us enough in time. They were on back order. They did send them this last week, so now we've got a lot. More than we'll need this year for sure of the hope chests. Marie last week held up the little pink sheet with your suggestions for how you might assess yourself day by day. So you have that available as well. Those piles probably go away next week, because it seems at some point, I have to say, maybe I've been beating you up too much over that, and I just need to let go, and you'll do what you're going to do. Okay. Wednesdays, had our first Wednesday this past week. Again, we had plenty of soup for this past week. I'm expecting plenty of soup for this coming week. The sign-up sheet in the latter weeks starts to have a couple of holes. So the last 2 weeks in particular, last week especially, although I did see a couple people signed up this morning after the early service. So, but your help, always appreciated. All right, week 1 being mortal. That was last week. Any reactions before we move ahead?
How many have read the book?
I think I asked that question last week as well, but yeah, a half dozen or so. Not required, not expected. It's a good read.
It is a very good read.
It's very accessible. It's really hard and heartening, I think.
It is.
I think there's a lot of reasons for us to be encouraged by it, even as there is a lot in it that is a bit challenging. What happens to our brains as we age? They shrink. Oh my gosh, they start wobbling around inside our skull. This is terrible. It's the truth. So what are you going to do about it? So, that's one of the little
It's not
tidbits.
only about aging, though.
That's only about aging. Now, again, and I mentioned this, so that's the book. This is the video we're looking at. Oh, there we go. Yeah, the big unfixables. He said, this was a quote from last week in the video, the big unfixables are aging and dying. You can't fix those. The video is about dying. The book is about aging and dying, and certainly there are some overlaps, there's no question. But the book I think is more expansive in what we do. But yeah, dying is at the end of it for all of us. So these were some questions that we touched on last week. Somebody asked, I think it was the husband of the woman, asked, what did that cost us? That was a conversation about all the treatments they went through, that they were desperate, and from the doctor's perspective, they never had a chance. But because they were clutching at straws, they kept trying to do something else. And the conclusion at the end of it was, not only was the quality of life at the end diminished, but speculating, probably she wasn't as strong at the end, and therefore died sooner than she would have been if they had just let her die naturally at that point. So what did that cost us? Time and quality. Anything else from last week? Yes, sir.
One thing I took away was the doctor that, with the brain cancer, there was absolutely no way she could help them, give them hope. I was wondering how long can she stay in that job?
Yeah. Yeah, the emotional toll, because clearly, and we're going to see more of her in this episode, I think, this segment we're going to watch today. But I think we saw enough last week to wonder that, because she's clearly very caring, and she is emotionally engaged with every one of these people. And as I think she said, 95% of them are going to die just according to plan. And that's her job, is to walk them through that, and that's got to take a toll. Karen, did you have your hand up? I saw
Well,
something.
yeah, now that you said that statistics, though, I'm obviously wrong. But I think there's also comfort in the success, too, of getting them to the end of their journey is success. And then the cases that are not an end journey. I think that's what keeps those physicians going.
One of the things that we may not see, and I don't know how much of this we'll see from what was on television, but that the nurse, the oncology nurse,
Right.
really talks about the toll that it takes on her in the video that I saw on OPD, and you know how hard it is on her and her family, and to go home every day, and the struggle. I don't think the doctor talks about that, but the nurse that we saw in the one last week talks about that.
Anything else? I'd like to expand the conversation beyond just the dying, in order that it might help us with some of the decisions we make about living. I don't know that that's really going to happen in this series. It may require having some follow-up with the book itself, I think, to get into it. But I'll just have you hang on to that a little bit. You know, as you think about these stories, and in some cases your own stories, because certainly I know some of you have been there with loved ones. As you think about your stories, think about the things that matter about living. I think he spends more time talking about that, Atukawani does, with respect to his father. In this segment, we're going to see he does say, but I think he said more about it even in the book. And of course, we can draw our own, or tell our own stories about what matters to the people. And as long as they have something that matters to them, what can we do to help? So. This week is week 2 of being mortal. Last week, week 1 being mortal. The next week we'll finish the video. Sorry for those of you who won't be here. We'll maybe figure out a way that you too can have access to the video. And then follow up with a couple of peripherally but definitely related to mortality issues, estate planning and funeral planning. The video. Shall we get to it? So, I think I cautioned you last week that today was going to be a hard place to stop. Just a couple minutes, give you a chance to debrief a little bit on that. Initial reactions, comments?
It's like when you walk into the doctor's office and the receptionist says, "How you doing?"
If I was fine, I wouldn't be here.
Tremendous amount of courage
Mm-hmm.
On the part of whom?
on the part of everyone that's speaking the truth rather than engaging in what feels better. Just to go into that pain.
Yeah, and you're dealing with, in that particular case, you were dealing with 2 different people and their emotions, which are different.
Lee.
I would not want to have the last doctor that we saw, the female, treat me if I were in that situation.
Why not?
I don't think she just doesn't have the right tone of voice, the right personality. It felt so phony to me and so uncomfortable for her, where other doctors have done a much better job of dealing with that topic.
One of the, I'll come right back to you, I promise. Okay. One of the points I noticed, particularly in this last time I watched this segment, was the conversations between doctors and patients, and the doctors who feel like they have to repeat themselves because the patients aren't able to hear it, and I get that. But there was also the perspective that patients sometimes need to take the lead in that doctor-patient relationship. And so that was one of the dynamics I thought we saw running through all those conversations, and it was highlighted in some of the dialogue over it, the narrative over it, but by no means resolved. Karen.
I love the book. For some reason, I know these people agreed to being videoed. I am very unhappy being in their personal space.
It feels awkward, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't think it's right.
I mean, clearly they signed disclaimers to do this for our benefit. So I mean, with all the awkwardness at hand, I think it's important upon us to honor that by really trying to take it in. But I hear you. Yeah.
Well, to Lee's suggestion about the last doctor, I was glad that she was being upfront rather than not saying this is it and pretending we can do something else. But she wasn't emotionally as attached as some of the doctors.
I just wanted to point out that not only was there a dynamic between doctors and the patient, but also at the end there with how he was so comforting to his wife. You know, it isn't a one-way street, and I think the patient always has something to give and does give in the situation. It's all about relationships and how we live those out. And so it's important if doctors can be truthful, you know, instead of living on the surface, because we do that too often. And in a case like that, I mean, just those little hand movements between him and his wife conveyed so much.
Well, and in terms of medical care, remembering that there was a nurse there too. She was a powerful
Advocate.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was kind of an agreement ahead of time before they did this process, if there would be no faith involved. One of the things that when I was with my dad and it was his last days, that was one of the things that he brought up himself. You know, and I didn't catch any of that.
I don't know that they're going to go there in this frontline series
Yeah.
at all. I'm trying to think if there's anything later, and I don't think there is anything in this particular 60-minute video.
Well, the book doesn't even.
No, and it kind of, you know, given what we know about Tua Gawande and well, actually, in the next episode we're gonna go to the Ganges River.
Right.
So I take it back. There really is a spiritual component being highlighted. It's not a Christian one, but there is certainly a spiritual aspect of the story that Tua Gawande will tell about his own father. That's foreshadowing for those of you who are paying attention at home.
I would also say that I think, as I watched all of this, and as I read the book, the thing that came to mind is, one of the things that we need to do as Christians is become very clear in our mind what we believe about death and what we believe about eternal life, and examine those things, because it's nice to think about them in general, but when it comes to your own mortality and facing that moment, what do we really think deep down in our hearts about that? Because it can make it, it can make a difference. What was the bishop in Chicago that died?
The cardinal, the Roman Catholic cardinal.
Cardinal Bernadine. He basically said, and he went through the whole process of disbelief and fighting back, and then he finally came to the conclusion: death, as a Christian, death is not the end.
Yeah.
And so, but each of us needs to really mull that over as we deal with these things.
Okay, it is a little after 10. We have service at 10:15. Those of you who will not be at retreat,